Hello everybody, my name is Dr. Juiinigudkar and I am a soon-to-be radiology resident in Mumbai, and I achieved an All India rank of 7 in the recently conducted Neet PG 2023 exam. And ever since those results came out, I have been making content to share part of my Neet PG journey, my experiences and whatever study tips I have regarding preparation with you guys. Today's video is also going to be about studies, and more specifically it's going to be focused around revision and revision strategies which I personally use, also the ones which I wish I had used. I'm going to share the things which I did, and I'm also going to share certain methods that I feel would have made the process even easier, or it would have made it faster, and I could have maybe done more revisions in a certain amount of time if I had followed that. I have written the points down in my diary right here. So without any further ado, let's just get straight into it. We all know when it comes to Neet PG preparation or when it comes to medical syllabus, less content and more repetition is better when it comes to exam. For our conceptual understanding, we refer to standard textbooks which take forever to finish, but once you read them, your concepts are strong. When it comes to our exams, we don't refer to those books most of the times. We use concise versions of such textbooks which will help us revise more, so that in university exams we can actually write that stuff. Increased repetition, it makes it easier to just store that information in your brain. Although you have read Harrison and you have read Robbins for patho, for medicine, you do know exactly what happens in inflammation to remember those inflammatory cytokines and the exact process that goes on. Probably reading some other book, or you are referring to whatever notes you have made, and you have read those so often that the picture of that answer is crisp and clear in your mind, and you can replicate that into the exam. The Neet PG funda is kind of similar. Although you are not writing answers, you do want to remember a lot of information at the same time. You are reading 19 subjects. You want to remember every single factual detail about these subjects. But the thing is, you either get to read a lot of content or you get to read little content but a lot of time. I personally think it's better if you're reading less content and you're reading it again and again, because that is personally what I did. I did not read medicine. I knew that's a big amount of information which I might only get to read once. Either that or reading other subjects for the second time and giving more time to those other multiple subjects, giving time to their revision. So it was a choice I had to make. It was a bargain, and I selected the revision option. So I got to revise many other subjects multiple times because I did not give time to medicine. So how many revisions are necessary? I was told by my brother, who is also a doctor and he gave Neet PG a while ago. He told me to aim for 3 revisions at least before the exam. 1 first reading and 3 total revisions is what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, because I was doing internship at the time, I did not have enough time to try and do 3 revisions. So my aim was just to do 1 solid first reading, 1 good crisp revision and 1 rapid revision. So our preparation for revision starts right from your first reading. It starts right from the beginning. Your first reading should be from a very concise source. So you have to give, undivided attention to those notes. The content of those notes has to be as less as possible without compromising on vital information. The content becomes easier to revise later on. When it is extremely pictorial, when it is very graphic, you are building stronger memory. There's less sentences, less writing, more pictures, more diagrams, more flowchart. You have to make sure that the first time you're reading any of your notes, you have to be highly attentive and you have to try and grasp as much information as possible. So that means no passive learning. I have mentioned this a lot of time in most of my videos, but you have to do a lot of annotation, make your own flowcharts and mind maps within the notes. That is how highly attentive you have to be when you're doing your first read. I will show you some examples of how I annotated my notes. Already shared in another video all my sources for different subjects. For example, these are my microbiology notes. These are from Prep Ladder. I had heard from a friend that these notes are really pictorial, lot of tables, lot of all the microbiome tests, lot of pictures for those also. Yeah, so that's why I went ahead with prep for this one. As you can see, I have myself done a lot of annotation, a lot of my own mnemonics, a lot of ways to remember things. Going through these for the second time during revision was a breeze because it was just so pictorial and so information dense. So much info was given with very little sentences, very little text. When it came to lab diagnosis and different tests, they had given all these photos and all these flowcharts. And the notes which I had used was the older version of all those notes. The newer version of notes is more pictorial, more clinical and better organized. The tables are quite nice in this version. And there are separate boxes mentioning the important information. I had made these boxes in the previous version myself, and in this one they have given it printed already. And your work doesn't just stop at annotation. So the next thing which I recommend doing is you start making your own flowcharts and your own mind maps, your own small revision notes. I started doing all that during my first revision, which is a big mistake which I made. I should have done this during my first read. During my first read, I thought to myself, I will not make another set of notes for myself and increase the amount of content. I will just read my primary notes again and again. But during my first revision, I realized if I had done this earlier, then it would have made life even simpler. I'll just show you guys how I made these notes. Within my iPad on OneNote, I made all these small notes, but I did this during my first revision, which I think I should have done during my first read. For example, in virology, you have all your enveloped, non-enveloped viruses, some which replicate in the nucleus, in the cytoplasm, etc, etc. So this is how you come up with your own methods of remembering these things, all these different properties which these organisms have. I made this very big mind map for entire virology. So the next time I want to revise only virology, I can just come to this and I'll find out everything that I think is important. You add your own diagrams, you make your own pointers which you feel are difficult to remember. So the next time you don't have to spend more mental energy remembering what is difficult to remember. You can just go through this and that is your revision for this one entire topic. Again, if you have any information which you remember from some other subject, for example, if you have pathology some information, then you can mention it in your micro notes and such. So that is how you are making links and connections, and then you are remembering these things better. Even for FMT, I used this prep ladder. So for that also, when I read toxicology, I made these small pointer notes on my OneNote app again. And so that's one entire topic which you are finishing in this one page. So the next time you are revising, it's essentially that you can finish one topic in like 1 hour or maybe even lesser if you've revised plenty of times. Make some like stupid associations. For biochemistry, I had done all this. Like, I don't remember what it was exactly, but it helped me remember these things better, and that is why you should be annotating all your notes. So my point being, everything that I did during my first revision, that is too late, like compared to what I should have done. You guys should go ahead and do it right now if you're finishing up your first reading right now. Like suppose you have your notes, you've made your handwritten notes, or you're using printed notes or whatever. Annotate those notes, make another separate notebook if you want, where you can write down simpler ways for you to remember the same stuff, but faster and in a more efficient manner. So when you're doing your revision, you will refer to this and you will go through this so many times. It will be at the tip of your tongue and it will be much easier to remember next time you revise. So the subsequent revisions will get much easier. If you're someone like me and you feel writing stuff down makes it easier for you to remember, then this is what I did during my rapid revision. I did not get time to go through this again, but simply writing down, like writing these things down, I think helped me remember it better. Again, I did this during my rapid revision, that is during my last 15 days before the exam. If you can do this earlier and you can do this during your first revision, I think it will be much more beneficial than it was to me. So 15 days before the exam, that is during my rapid revision, I started to use this notebook. And what I did was, in absolutely no organized manner and in an absent-minded fashion, I would write down whatever I was reading. When you're reading, if you're writing the same stuff on some other surface, then you are probably going to remember that better because your mind is processing that stuff in a clearer fashion because you are writing it down. So I made this during such a short period before the exam that I did not get to read this again before it. I think what would have been more beneficial for me, and it can be beneficial for you, is that if you do this during your first revision, not during your first reading, because I think when you're reading for the first time, you don't know a lot of things. But when you're doing your revision, if you write stuff down like this, and then during your rapid revision, that is few days before the exam, if you can just go through this upar se, then I think you will have a better time remembering. So yeah, the intention of showing all my notes and my annotated notes, my mind maps to you, was to tell you, start doing this right from the beginning. Do it during your first read, so you will have a much easier time when you're doing your first revision. Trust me, you will go through your notes at an immense speed, and you will be happier that you put so much effort into all this in the beginning, so that later on your life became slightly easier. Please give yourself deadlines, and even if you feel like the deadlines are unrealistic and you might not be able to meet them, the deadline being there is an important thing, so that you don't get carried away in the flow of just one subject. Maybe extend them by 1 or 2 days and then move on. I think it is smart for you to revise multiple subjects at once, so that you are keeping your mind active and you're exercising your memory in all these different subjects. Because we tend to sit down and then read one subject so well that we lose touch with all the other subjects. When I was doing my first read, I only did one subject at a time, but during revision, I did multiple subjects at once. It gave me a relief that I am not forgetting things in multiple subjects. At the same time, I'm stepping on multiple stones. It made me feel like, okay, I have a good grasp on many subjects at a time. I'm not forgetting anything, and at the same time, I'm revising a lot of stuff. And another thing to keep in mind is that you have to go on reducing the amount of content that you're revising with each respective revision. I got to do only one revision, so I still was going through a lot of notes. I was going through all my notes essentially, and I did not have a concise version of anything, and I did not want to use any other revision notes, subject myself to any new content which will be even harder to remember. If during your first revision you manage to reduce the content from your first read, then your second revision will be even faster. And what do you mean when you say reduce the content? When you are handwriting your own smaller version of your notes, you prioritize what is harder for you to remember, what is a part of past year questions, and which is more important and likely to get asked in upcoming exam. Just in general, what you think is more factual, requires more repetition, needs to be read more often. Find out these points, highlight or you write down, because the first time you read something, you conceptually don't understand it well, so everything seems important. The second time you read it, conceptual points are well covered, you understand the subject well now. Now only the factual things and some icky things which are really difficult to remember, those things need to be revised. Not everything is of equal importance. You figure out what has more weightage for you. Also, there is this one strategy which I personally did not use, but I think it would have been useful for me as an intern. So if you are also an intern, or you are somebody who also is working at the same time and you have to travel a lot, for example, traveling by the local from the suburbs to the city every day, I think one more way for you to enhance your revision, when you are reading your notes, if you are someone who reads it out loud, you should record your own voice of reading these notes. Then later on you can listen to yourself on your phone or whatever device you're using. You can listen to the same notes, and that is getting revised in your head on that day itself. So suppose in the morning I read something, I read a certain topic and I recorded myself reading it. In the evening when I was traveling, I listened to that same thing. So there is no new content which is getting processed by my brain. I am simply revising, recalling the same thing which I read today morning, and it is getting fortified in my memory. You are using different modalities, like you read it first with your eyes, now you are listening to it and you are using your auditory senses. So I personally think this is a good idea for you to do a daily end of the day revision. So yeah, that's it from me when it comes to revisions. I don't think I shared something that is extremely out of the box or something very extraordinary or something that's unheard of when it comes to all this. We all know these strategies, we all know all of this. It's just that sometimes we know things but we don't implement them, and I wanted to share what exactly I did wrong, and I want you guys to take away from my mistakes so that you can implement better decisions in your preparation. I also wanted to share with you guys how I annotate my notes, the absolute mess which I have made in that rapid revision notebook. But somewhere it helped me, and I did not think at the time that it would help. You should also trust your gut. If you have any instinct when it comes to revising certain things which you feel are going to be tougher for you to remember, although somebody else is getting it very easily, but it's difficult for you. So you should trust yourself on that and give more time to such topics. Use strategies which I am telling you, which somebody else is telling you, and try them all out. And in the end, one thing will stick with you, one thing will be the most beneficial for you. You will figure out what that is as you go, and just take it, stick to it, and be consistent. You are going to do multiple repetitions, multiple revisions, and that information is going to be concrete. It's going to be solid in your head. And when you are solving MCQs and you're giving tests, you are not going to be very doubtful, and you're not going to second guess yourself for every other MCQ like you probably do right now. After revision, the picture changes a lot. You get a lot of instinctual knowledge. You get like a gut feeling for each MCQ. You sometimes guess something that is completely correct, but you're not guessing it. You are finding out information which you probably read a long time ago, but you have somehow found a method to subconsciously remember it. So that is what is going to happen to you at the end of revision. And I hope you give enough time and energy to revise and not just blindly memorize. Strategic revision. So I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, then please leave a like under the video, and if you have any feedback, any suggestions, any not so harsh criticism, then please leave it in the comments below. I do go through my comments pretty regularly right now. It might reduce once residency starts. It has been a lot of fun sharing study related things with you guys so far. I don't know how long I can continue being relevant when it comes to NEET PG. Any doubts which I can solve, I'm happy to do so. Thank you so much for watching and supporting this channel so far, and I hope you will continue to do so even in the future once I become a resident and I'm a little too busy to probably post so often. Yeah, so I guess I'll see you in the next video. I don't know when that will be, but yeah, see you in the next one. Bye bye.